Okay then, now we're going to look at a few bonus tools for UV mapping that allow you to do some exact UV mapping. You'll never be required to turn in any projects with most of these things, but I just want you to know that they exist. So the first one I want to demonstrate is how I can do some exact snapping. So if I look at this house, this is the advanced version of our house, you can see at the bottom right here I've got basically two pieces stacked on top of each other, which are each half of the outer house, the walls. There's one half over there, there's the other half over here, and stuck together, they perfectly, down to the last pixel, hit the left and right sides of this image. Now these bricks right here are a tileable texture. That means on the left and right, they're completely identical. You'll never see a seam, top and bottom too. Tileable is very nice for when we want things to repeat without seeing any obvious gaps. The seams, and if you look at this building, you will see every corner perfectly transitions between these bricks. There are no seams anywhere. If I mess with this a little bit, you can start to see what it would look like if there were some seams. Weird things like bricks that are strangely thin, or perhaps something like the bricks not quite matching up vertical, but mostly it's just that they meet in a way that makes sense. I don't think I've ever seen a brick that was this impossibly thin, like a little tile. So, how did I do this? It's pretty simple. What I'm going to do now is just take these two sides and remap them. I'm just going to go to Create and hit Automatic, and I'll end up with all these chunks. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to glue these together with a little sewing. So if I go down to Cut and Sew, you'll see a bunch of fun tools here. Cutting is pretty simple. If I go to the Cut tool, you can see if I just drag, sorry, the Cut tool, not the Cut command, my bad, the Cut tool, you can see I can drag and start to split these up. So I took one UV shell and just pulled a piece out of it. So anytime you're thinking, all right, I want this stuff to be somewhere else, I want to make this particular polygon a different color, you can come in here and even with a very, very complicated object, just start chopping it up as you wish without having to select a bunch of faces. And also we can sew things together and we can stitch them together. So if I cut things up, I can then take my sew tool and then blam it, cut together, or I can use, sorry, the sew command, sew tool, keep on mixing those up. You see I can combine things like that. What I really want to do is do something a little more precise. These chunks are all lined up next to each other, so I get a little more screen space here. This chunk is next to that chunk. Right now they're separated. What I'm going to do is sew them back together. Now these edges right here, you can see I'm selecting 3 edges along the border here between this chunk and I can see it over here, it's highlighted, this chunk. These sets of edges connect these two pieces. And if I hit stitch together, they get glued together. And I can keep on going around. I'm going to go ahead and just make it one full thing. Stitch together, stitch together. This is the full side of the house, just in one big rotation. These are all the walls. Earlier I had them stacked on top of each other to make the bricks a bit larger. Eventually when I stick this on top of the bricks, you'll see, I should say the bricks smaller. Right now the bricks are a bit large, but we'll just go with this because it suits our purposes. So now I've got these things all combined, that's nice. Next I want to go to my Align and Snap tools. And there are a couple of buttons in here that are quite useful. So, first of all, I need this to be exactly hitting the left and right side. So I've got these snap buttons. If I do this with these shells selected, I can stick this anywhere on these 9 basic coordinates, the center and all the sides and corners, as I wish. I also need these to be perfectly the width of this image. Again, you could try to do these things with your eyeballs. You could just scale this up until you saw pixels line up as close as they could. but chances are you would eventually see, you know, there's just some minor imperfection that your human eyeballs can't quite handle. So instead of doing that, we're going to go over here, normalize, and that has made it perfectly fit inside this tile. Then I just snap it to the bottom, and behold, it perfectly matches the left and right of the tileable images, which means you will never see any seams. Lovely. It did end up by an unfortunate coincidence with this brick being impossibly thin, but if I really wanted to, I could either adjust the image or maybe move some faces around. It's possible to make that a bit more realistic, like so. In any case, cutting and sewing, and aligning and snapping. If any time you want things to be very exact, these are the tools that you use to do that.